Hello, everyone. Something massive just happened inside a federal courtroom today at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon. And right now, Trump's political future is hanging by a thread. His top lawyers quit right in the middle of court. The judge hit him with a contempt charge, and within just a few hours, some of his biggest financial supporters announced they're pulling more than $200 million away from his campaign. This isn't just another scandal. This could be the moment that destroys Trump's chances of running in 2028. Let me explain what went down and why this might be the turning point everyone's been waiting for. Everything started this morning. Trump's legal team showed up at Judge Tanya Chutkan's courtroom. They were supposed to argue a motion to dismiss charges related to the January 6th federal case. But things fell apart almost immediately. According to journalists who were sitting inside the courtroom, Judge Chutkan became more and more frustrated with Trump's lawyer, John Laureau. She kept interrupting him. She accused him of twisting facts and misrepresenting previous court decisions. You could feel the tension building. Then around 10:25 in the morning, something shocking happened. Judge Chutkan asked Laureau a direct question. She wanted to know if he had actually read the evidence files that prosecutors submitted last week. Laureau paused. The judge asked him again. And then Laureau admitted something stunning. He said he hadn't personally gone through all the materials. He told the judge that his team gave him summaries instead. Judge Chutkan didn't hold back. According to the official court transcript, she said this: "Counsel, you are arguing about documents you haven't read. You are making representations to this court based on secondhand summaries. That is not advocacy. That is malpractice." The entire courtroom went quiet. Laureau tried to say something, but the judge cut him off. She said she was thinking about punishing Trump's entire legal team. She accused them of repeatedly failing to follow court rules and orders. She gave them until 2 p.m. to hand over documents that had been requested 3 weeks ago. Then she paused the hearing for lunch. What happened after lunch was even more unbelievable. When court started again at 2 p.m., John Laureau stood up and made an announcement. He said that he and 2 other lawyers were quitting the case immediately. He mentioned something about major disagreements with Trump over legal strategy. He also talked about ethical concerns. Then he just walked out. 2 other attorneys got up, grabbed their papers, and followed him out the door. Judge Chutkan looked completely shocked. She called for a 15-minute break to figure out what to do next. When the hearing started again, she turned to the lawyers Trump had left. There was a junior lawyer and a paralegal. Suddenly, these 2 were supposed to represent a former president in a major federal trial. The judge asked if they were ready to continue. Both of them said no. They admitted they didn't have the experience to handle something this serious without help. That's when Judge Chutkan made her big move. She issued an order. Trump now has 48 hours to explain why he shouldn't be held in criminal contempt for not having proper legal representation. She also issued a warrant, not to arrest Trump, but to make him show up in person on Monday morning. And she made it very clear, if Trump's lawyers quit because they think he wanted them to lie to the court, she's going to investigate that thoroughly. This is a disaster for Trump on so many levels. First, losing your entire legal team in the middle of a federal criminal case almost never happens. It sends a message to everyone watching, the media, the public, potential jurors. It tells them something is very wrong. Lawyers don't just abandon high-profile cases unless there's a serious problem. Either the relationship with the client has broken down completely, or they believe staying would violate their professional ethics. Second, the criminal contempt charge is serious. If Judge Chutkan decides Trump is in contempt, she can fine him. She can force him to follow court orders or face jail time, and she can make legal assumptions that hurt his defense. A contempt finding can also be used as evidence that Trump knows he's guilty. It makes it look like he's trying to block the legal process. Third, and maybe most important, this all happened in front of reporters. Within minutes, video clips were spreading online. News channels stopped their regular programming to cover it. And the story being told right now is this: Trump's own lawyers quit because they refused to lie for him. Whether that's the full truth or not doesn't matter. That's the narrative. And in politics, what people believe is what matters most. Now let's talk about the political damage, because things are moving even faster outside the courtroom. Within 3 hours of the lawyers walking out, major Republican donors started making announcements. Kenneth Griffin, a billionaire who runs a huge hedge fund, gave Trump's super PAC $15 million back in 2024. Today, he released a statement. He said he's stopping all financial support for anything connected to Trump. He called what happened in court a disgrace and an embarrassment to the Republican Party. Stephen Schwarzman, the CEO of Blackstone, went even further. His team confirmed that Schwarzman has moved a planned $100 million donation away from Trump's Save America PS. He's giving it to other Republican candidates and causes instead. $100 million, that's not a small gesture. That's one of the most powerful people in Republican fundraising saying Trump is finished. And then there's Miriam Adelson. Her late husband, Sheldon Adelson, was a casino billionaire and one of Trump's biggest supporters in 2020 and 2024. Today, her family foundation announced they're pausing all political donations while they review the 2028 candidates. Translation? They're not supporting Trump anymore, but they're not ready to say who they're backing yet. When you add it all up, we're talking about more than $200 million in donations that are now gone for Trump. But it's not just about the money. It's about the message it sends. It gives other wealthy Republicans permission to walk away. If Griffin and Schwarzman and the Adelsons are done with Trump, then every other big donor can leave without worrying about being punished by the party. And we're already seeing it spread. A fundraiser that was supposed to happen next week in Dallas has been postponed. 2 more events scheduled for February have been canceled. The people who organize these fundraisers are telling reporters they can't get anyone to commit anymore. The money is disappearing fast. Trump's team is trying to spin this as a good thing. His campaign spokesperson put out a statement. They called the donors who left establishment elites showing their true colors. They claimed that small donations from regular people are going up. And to be fair, Trump has always been good at raising money from his supporters. When he says he's under attack, people donate. But here's the truth. Small donations can pay for rallies and ads, but they can't fund a full presidential campaign. You need big donors for that. You need super PAC money. You need the resources that multi-million-dollar donations provide. And right now, that's all falling apart. The polls are showing this too, and the numbers are bad. A new poll from Quinnipiac just came out. It shows Trump's support among Republican primary voters dropped to 39%. 2 weeks ago, he was at 47%. That's an 8-point drop in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis jumped to 34%. The gap is now just 5 points. In New Hampshire, another poll shows DeSantis actually leading Trump by 2 points. It's a tie statistically, but it's the first time DeSantis has been ahead anywhere. And when pollsters ask Republican voters why they're moving away from Trump, the top 3 reasons are his legal problems, concerns about whether he can win, and exhaustion with all the drama. Those aren't policy disagreements. Those are fundamental questions about whether Trump can actually compete in a general election, or whether he's become too controversial, too distracted, and too legally damaged to be a real candidate. Republican politicians are watching the same polls, and they're starting to make decisions about their own futures. Senator John Cornyn from Texas told reporters today that he's worried about what happened in court. He said all candidates should follow legal processes. That's about as close as Cornyn gets to criticizing Trump. But it's noticeable. He's distancing himself. Senator Lindsey Graham, one of Trump's most loyal supporters, was asked directly if he still backs Trump for 2028. His answer, I support whoever the Republican nominee is, but I think we need to focus on winning elections, not fighting legal battles. That's Graham creating space between himself and Trump. He's not breaking with him publicly, but he's also not defending him the way he used to. And then there's former Vice President Mike Pence. He gave an interview tonight. He said, what happened in that courtroom today is not the leadership America needs. We need leaders who respect the rule of law, who work with their legal teams, and who put the country ahead of personal grievances. That's the strongest criticism Pence has ever made of Trump. It shows that Republicans who worked for Trump are no longer afraid to speak out. Behind the scenes, the conversations are even harsher. Multiple sources say senior Republican National Committee officials are planning for scenarios where Trump is no longer the frontrunner. They're looking at how quickly DeSantis or another candidate could take over. They're discussing whether the RNC should stay neutral or quietly help more electable candidates. These conversations weren't happening a month ago. Now they're happening every day. So what happens next? Legally, Trump has 48 hours to respond to the judge's order. He has to show up in court on Monday and explain why he shouldn't shouldn't be held in contempt. He also needs to explain how he's going to move forward without a legal team. He can try to hire new lawyers, but finding qualified attorneys willing to take this case is going to be incredibly hard. Most top criminal defense lawyers don't want anything to do with Trump cases. The reputational risk is too high, and Trump has a history of not listening to legal advice. If Trump can't find new lawyers, Judge Chutkan has options. She can assign attorneys to represent him. Trump would hate that because he'd lose control over his defense. She can delay the trial, but she's made it clear she doesn't want to do that. Trump has already delayed things for months. Or she can move forward with the trial, even if Trump doesn't have good representation. That could lead to a conviction that gets overturned later because of bad legal help. None of these options are good. Politically, the next 2 weeks are critical. If Trump can't stabilize his fundraising, if more donors leave, if his poll numbers keep dropping, we could see a total collapse. DeSantis is already increasing his campaign efforts. He's going to Iowa 3 days next week. He's holding town halls, meeting with local party leaders, doing the grassroots work that wins caucuses, and his funding is exploding. His super PAC announced today that they raised $23 million in the last 72 hours. $23 million in 3 days. That's breaking records. We're also watching to see if other major Republicans jump into the race. Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has been calling donors and testing the waters. Senator Tim Scott is doing the same. If they think Trump is vulnerable, if they see an opportunity, we could have a crowded Republican primary. That would split the anti-Trump vote and make DeSantis's path even easier. And here's the unpredictable part. Trump's ego. He doesn't back down. He doesn't quit. Even if the money runs out, even if the polls show he can't win, Trump will probably stay in the race. He sees it as personal validation and a legal defense strategy. He can claim political persecution more convincingly if he's still a candidate. He can raise money by playing the victim. He can keep the attention on himself. So don't expect him to drop out, even if it's clear he can't win. But here's what Republican leaders are quietly hoping for, that Trump becomes so weak, so distracted by legal problems that he naturally falls to second or third place in the primary. Then the nomination moves to someone else without a fight. They don't want a messy battle at the convention. They don't want to be seen as forcing Trump out. They want voters to make that choice on their own. And based on today's events, voters might be starting to do exactly that. So as we wrap up this extraordinary day in American politics, here's where things stand. Trump's legal team walked out on him in open court. A federal judge cited him for possible criminal contempt. Over $200 million in donor money disappeared in one afternoon. His poll numbers are crashing in early primary states. And Republican leaders are preparing for life after Trump, even if they won't admit it publicly yet. Does this mean Trump is done? Not necessarily. He's survived crises before that would have destroyed anyone else, but this feels different. This feels like a real turning point because it's not just Democrats attacking him. It's not just the media. It's his own lawyers walking away. It's his own donors cutting him off. It's his own party quietly getting ready to move on. The next few weeks will tell us if this is truly the end or just another chapter in the never-ending Trump story. But one thing is absolutely certain. What happened today changed the course of the 2028 race. And there's no going back to how things were yesterday morning. This is Capitol Insider giving you the real story and the deeper context you won't find anywhere else. If you want to stay ahead of what's really happening in Washington, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Things are changing fast. Major decisions are being made behind closed doors, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. I'll see you in the next update.